Welcome, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Coming at you live from Brooklyn and Queens. This is Spirit Matters, your daily check-in with Dayal and Achuta. And Kishore Chandra is still in Ecuador. Little vacay this week, but he'll be back next week. But we're glad to be here. And this is your little daily check-in with us, just to make sure that we're still doing okay. To remind you that you're not alone. To remind you that spirit matters. That it's good to have your little daily check-in. And we do that by asking how we're doing, reading the Bhagavad Gita, and then walking away with a little takeaway that we can keep in our pocket to remind us of spiritual truths and wisdom and reassurance. How are you, Achuta?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here.
Good and
All
happy
worked
to
out.
be. It all worked out. Did it almost not work out?
I don't know. I don't
Can we not
know.
ask the deep questions?
So many malfunctions. I don't know what's happening.
Malfunctions. Life is filled with malfunctions. Um, I'm doing well. I'm here. I'm feeling good. Um, and yeah, ready to roll. Let's just go ahead and do it. Let's just go ahead and jump into it. Bhagavad Gita. We're in the third chapter. Should I catch up to speed, or do you want to say anything before I launch into my monologue?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay, so we have been reading third chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which is a great, super, ultra practical chapter. One of the things that makes the Bhagavad Gita, one of the wonderful things about the Bhagavad Gita is that it revolves around a working man, a family man, somebody who's in the world. It's not about some, renunciate on a hill. It's not about some monk who gave up everything. It's about somebody that very much is in the world and how he's trying to navigate spiritual life in a very complex material situation. And the third chapter specifically is titled Karma Yoga, where Krishna gives a lot of pertinent inputs about what it means to move through the world with a spiritual compass. And so that delicate balance, that's not easy, and it's messy. It's messy. And so we've been reading about that. And yesterday we read, I think, verses, do we read 16, 17, 18?
17 and 18.
We read 17 and 18. But for one who takes pleasure in the self, the capital S, whose human life is one for self-realization, who's satisfied in the self, only fully satiated, for him there is no duty. A self-realized a self-realized person has no purpose to fulfill in the discharge of prescribed duties, nor have they any reason not to perform such work, nor have they any need to depend on any living being. And so there's this idea of not needing anything from the world, having some sense of inner fulfillment that's not trying to, because I think what Chris is getting at here is that sometimes it's helpful for us to take a pause, step back, and and ask, what am I trying to squeeze out of the world? What am I trying to squeeze out of this relationship? What am I trying to squeeze out of this job? What am I trying to squeeze out of something? And Krishna's saying that be mindful of that. Be mindful of that. And that's where we left off.
And yesterday we were speaking about that balance. We were also speaking about the fact that Krishna was not constantly comparing Arjuna to anyone else.
Right.
Kind of allowing him to have his own brand of spirituality.
Right.
And we'll be talking about that more, even in the fourth chapter as we get into it. We'll be talking about this kind of new chain of disciplic succession and a new tradition of spirituality that is a little less on comparing what we're doing to everyone else and more about checking in and seeing what is right for us. I was just kind of thinking about that last verse 18 and
Verse
really kind of
18.
thinking, yeah, about this idea of maybe instead of checking in about what we're trying to squeeze out of this place, which kind of makes us seem like greedy and grasping.
Thanks for painting
Maybe
such a dark, terrible picture of everyone, Dial.
maybe some days it's supposed to be comforting, um, instead of making us seem as though we're constantly like grasping to try and squeeze as much as we can out of this place, which is true. Um, some days it just kind of feels like Krishna is reminding us to tailor our expectations.
Hmm.
It could be as simple as tailoring our expectations. We, as people, do not usually like to depend on others because it makes us feel vulnerable. The moment we start depending upon others, they have the ability to let us down drastically and completely, and then we're disappointed. All these things. And so Krishna has already spoken about what happens from contemplating the objects of the senses and then not having that obsession fulfilled to our satisfaction. And so Krishna has already spoken about the pitfalls and the dangers of too much dependence. And we feel that. We feel it in different ways in our anxiety, in our ways that we cope in the. But you were supposed to. We were supposed to have this kind of interaction. And so now Krishna is kind of comforting us, saying, you know what? Once you go really, really internal, um, that anxiety can start to die down a little bit. You are no longer subject to the ebb and flow and the tidal waves of depending on someone else, which can cause so much anxiety, so much uncertainty, so much unsurety within us. Like that creates such a nervous feeling within us. I don't know if this person's actually going to come through. I don't even know if they have the physical capabilities of being there for me in such a total way. But Krishna does. The self with a capital S does. So once we shift that dependence off of other people and onto the person who can actually fulfill all of those things, those needs, those desires that are within us, it's
Hmm.
a little less scary.
Yeah. Um, I was looking at Srila Prabhupada. I think very much what you're sharing very much underscores some of what's there in the commentary from Srila Prabhupada on these verses, going back to verse 17. Um, there's a sentence Srila Prabhupada mentioned. They're both short paragraphs. He says, by such clearing of consciousness, um, one becomes fully confident of his eternal position in relationship with the Supreme. By such clearing of consciousness, we become fully confident of our eternal position in relationship with the Supreme. And I think that you talk about fear or anxiety or our insecurity really comes from a forgetfulness. It becomes from a forgetfulness that we are actually sheltered. You say so often when we check on how you're doing, it's like, I'm sheltered, you know, and it's like, it's a reminder, that when I'm experiencing fear or anxiety or um, insecurity, it's a forgetfulness of this. It's this lack of confidence in the eternal position of my relationship with the Supreme. And in that frantic state, we're seeking comfort. We're seeking some sense of stability, some consistency, something to hold on to. Um, and and yeah, it can sometimes in spiritual circles be painted as like this negative, greedy and selfish and materially minded, but actually it's like I'm just seeking shelter as best I know how. I'm looking for comfort. I'm feeling afraid. I'm feeling insecure. I'm feeling alone. I'm feeling empty, or whatever it might be, to whatever degree. And I'm seeking some sort of comfort. I'm seeking some sort of remembrance. And so I think that what Krishna is reminding us here is that for us to remember, like, oh, where can I um that when we start to develop spiritually, we become more confident of our eternal position and relationship with the Supreme in a way that um, allows me to feel I don't need to be grasping or, you know, uh, trying to squeeze something out of something or holding on in ways that maybe feel unhealthy. So I appreciate that.
Because I feel like once someone has met one need of ours, another one is going to pop up.
Mm,
And it is unfair to place all of those needs on one particular partner, on one
mm,
particular family member, on one particular community member. No one can fulfill all needs that we're searching for. So we spread them
mm,
out. But how far can we spread them out without it also feeling like it's being outsourced? And and those desires, those needs, almost feel insatiable. Who
mm,
in the world is it that can somehow satisfy all of these needs at once,
mm.
including all of the myriads of needs that are going to come up later?
Yeah.
Because just as though we feel like we've healed one part, something else pops up.
Mm,
And we are constantly advised, don't try to put that all on one person.
mm,
You will overwhelm that person. And
mm.
so then we're trying to figure out, well, if we're so overwhelming, then who is it?
Yeah.
And Krishna's kind of hinting at the truth that he's the ocean. And so when we start hearing that we as souls are compared to one drop in the ocean, yes, it can let us know our rightful place and just how small we are, but it can also be a
Mm,
comfort
mm,
because there's the ocean. It's
mm,
not like the ocean is so far away. There's the ocean, and that ocean can satisfy all of the desires and all of the needs for comfort and reliability and trust and vulnerability, and then all of the other things that come up that we don't even know about. That
mm,
person who can satisfy them all is just a perspective away.
mm. Beautiful. I love it. I love it. Should we continue forth in reading? I was looking at the verses. I didn't see if you nodded your head or shook your head.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So that would be verse 19. Do you want to
Yes.
read?
Sure. Therefore, without being attached to the fruits of activities, one should act as a matter of duty. For by working without attachment, one attains the supreme.
Mm,
And we've spoken about this before. Um, and especially in the purport, Krishna's really driving it home again and again. Oh, wow. The purport is amazing. To be a good man or a nonviolent man is a personal attachment, but to act on behalf of the supreme is to act without attachment for the result. That
mm.
is perfect action of the highest degree, recommended by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna.
Tell me why you picked that line.
Often we kind of think that to be a good person, to be nonviolent, is fine. It's enough.
Mm,
Like, isn't that what everybody should strive for?
mm,
But what happens when you've done all the right things? You have done everything for all the people, and you're
mm,
still feeling a little bit of, but what's left for me?
mm. Yeah. There was I was just pulling up last night. I was reading uh a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, and there was a commentary at the end. Um, that I read over and over again. And I think it's somewhat related to this idea of because what I read when I hear that of like being a good person or being a nonviolent person or being something of like sometimes wanting to be seen in a certain way, right? And sometimes when we make the choice to follow our spiritual path, we have to give up the way people see us. Um, and we realize that that's a certain form of attachment. I want to be seen as I want to be the person who's just reliable for anything. You can count on me for anything, but actually, like, no, I need to set a boundary. No, I can't. I'm not coming over tonight. You know, I'm not going out. Like I'm not available right now. You know what I mean? um, would we have to set our boundaries in order to protect our spiritual development? And so we have to sometimes give up reputations that we grown accustomed to or we appreciate or wanting to be seen in a certain way by other people. And so this idea of also there's this commentary at the end of this verse. It's in the sixth canto. Srila Prabhupada writes, this verse is very instructive for sincere workers in the Krishna consciousness movement. We should not be jubilant in victory or morose in defeat. We should make a sincere effort to implement the will of Krishna or Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and we should not be concerned with victory or defeat. And this last line, our only duty is to work sincerely so that our activities may be recognized by Krishna. Our only duty is to work sincerely so that our activities may be recognized by Krishna. And I think a lot of times people, coming up with me, people feeling like, I feel like I'm doing all the things, but it's not working, you know? And it's like, well, what's your definition of working? You know, is your definition of working mean that like all your material problems are going to go away? Is your definition of working meaning that like you're going to like feel this euphoria all the time? Like, is your definite, like, what's your definition of working? And I think what Krishna is saying here is that our definition of working spiritually isn't going to be the same as what we think when something works materially, you know? And so I think that when Krishna's saying here, like, even if externally it seems to be not going the way you would want it to, that was this what we have in this section of Arjuna. Krishna's instruction to Arjuna wasn't go win the battle. It was just fight, you know? It was just, and don't worry about the outcome. And so I think for us, sometimes the material mind can come in and start to judge or spiritual, is this working? Is this blah, et cetera? And just realizing like, actually, like I'm just the sake of the endeavor. And Krishna mentions that here, um, this very verse that you just read, verse 19 in the third chapter. Therefore, without being attached to the fruits of activities, one should act as a matter of duty, for by working without attachment, one attains the supreme. And Prabhupada mentioned in the purport I just read, our only duty is to work sincerely so that our activities may be recognized by Krishna. And then it goes back to what you're saying of like, no one person can hold all of our needs. And there's a need for each of us to redirect our needs towards that supreme person and to bring that from the theoretical to the practical, where we're actually starting to develop that. People ask me questions sometimes, and I'm just thinking like, have you checked in with Krishna about that? Like, have you spent a little time just like wrestling internally with Krishna and like bringing that there? Like, where is that dialogue? And where are we developing that dialogue?
Hmm. I think it does come down to asking the right questions. Um, you said, well, then what's your definition of working, right? What's our definition of success? What's our definition of the goal? Our goals are all skewed. If our goal is for everyone to see us as a nice person, then simply working for the sake of endeavor should be enough, right? But it's not. And so then I don't think that that's actually our goal. A lot of us, our goal, our definition of success is it has gotten me away from this pain. We are usually um, trying to get away or stay away from some undesirable outcome. We have looked at our goals as opposed to what we don't want. But I don't think we're quite sure about what we do want. Um, if we ask ourselves, okay, what do you want in a relationship? Usually it's like, oh, I want a person who's like this and like this and like this and like this, because I don't want this to happen, and I don't want this to happen, and I don't want this to happen, and I've been in a situation where I don't want this, and I don't want that, and I don't want that, and I don't want that. And it's like, but what do you do want? In the positive sense, what is it that we do want? And sometimes I think we don't really know. And so Srila Prabhupada keeps coming back to the same goal. Why is fighting for the sake of duty enough? Why? Why is that endeavor, and why is just working sincerely going to be enough? We haven't even gotten to a goal where everyone will respect us, or everyone will like us, or everyone will. Why is that enough? Because the goal is no longer, I want to get away from this pain, or I want everyone to see me as a good person, and therefore the pain of rejection is not there. Now the goal is, I want to see the supreme. I want to attain the supreme person. I want to find the supreme person. I want to give and receive love from the supreme person. So working in that endeavor is enough. All we can work sincerely so that our endeavors will be seen by the supreme, because that's the goal. It's no longer attached to, I want to get away from that pain, because that will never stop. The goalpost of fear is ever moving. The goalpost of pain is ever moving. And this is why Krishna will get into it later, that liberation doesn't work. Liberation only takes care of, I just want to get away from that. But what do we want to get closer to? What do we want? If our goal becomes to give and receive love with the supreme person, if our goal is to help ourselves and another attain the supreme person, then those endeavors become enough.
Mm. Man, I love that so much. I love that. Um, what am I trying to get closer to? And if I'm just trying to get closer to the supreme person, that endeavor in itself is sufficient. Mm. Mm. Just letting that soak in and marinate all over my consciousness. I feel like I just want to get off this podcast and go chant some japa and
Now
get close and
that
get closer.
that's the best compliment. That's always my favorite compliment, because that's how I feel. I feel like all of the best things, good kirtan, good conversations, those things make me want to go chant good japa. So
Mm,
that's the best compliment.
mm.
I'm not even going to say anything else.
I feel like I don't even want to ruin what you just said. Let's get some wrap it ups from Kimberly, some takeaways, and then we'll get some closing words. And I'm just gonna keep marinating this in. Then I got my closing word that I'll share, that I'm gonna go take with me.
Thank you. Today we're taking away to tailor our expectations, a remembrance that we are sheltered and have an eternal relationship with the Supreme, and shifting our dependence on Krishna, who is the ocean that can fulfill and satisfy all our desires. And our only duty is to sincerely work so our activities can be recognized by Krishna. It's just a perspective away.
Closing word, Achita. I feel like I don't want to say anything else so that I don't ruin the. I don't want to bring down the average of where we just got to.
I'm sitting with the whole thing. The fact that I can shift my goals, I can write those goals down clearly so that I remember what I'm really striving for, which is to give and receive love, the Supreme Person. And I can even help others. And in doing that, it expresses the kind of love that I've always wanted to give. This love that is not so fleeting, that doesn't just go away after a month or one argument or whatever. It stays for forever, because this goal is eternal. And it's even more than just liberating ourselves from whatever miserable condition or from fear. It goes beyond that.
The goal of giving and receiving love from the Supreme Person.
Mm.
Mm. It puts so much into perspective for me, because I just said I didn't want to say anything. Now I'm going to launch into a monologue. I'm so sorry. No, but maybe we could pick up here tomorrow also, because it puts a lot in perspective for me as someone in like a leadership position at the Bhakti Center, like a director of the Bhakti Center. There can be so much feeling of pressure to, like, I've got to do things a certain way. Like my service is to make the project succeed in a certain way, or to, whether it's from the physical runnings of the place to the caring of the community to the conducting of the programs. And it's so easy to look at every little detail and think like, like I'm so far behind, or this isn't going well, or that's not doing well, or I'm not doing a good job, or whatever it might be. And to judge my spiritual life on how I'm doing, and then letting the doubt or the whatever it come kind of just like over avalanche on top of you. And so, without getting so much into it, because we're supposed to be just wrapping up in a quick closing word, and I said I didn't want to lower the average of everything that was just said by you, is that, like, for me to remember, like, actually it's just an attempt to give and receive love with the Supreme Person. It's just me trying to have that experience of, Krishna, as messy as this may be, this is my offering to you. And as broken of a vessel as I may feel, I'm just opening myself to receive what you're giving me. And it doesn't matter, and that's for everybody in any sphere, any position, any place. You don't need to be you don't need anything other than simply to just, like, however big this may seem, or small it may seem, messy it may seem, perfectly well composed it may seem, or jumbled, at the end of the day, really, it's just my attempt to express love and give love to you. And I'm just trying to open up and receive that back. So I appreciate that a lot. And I appreciate that there always needs to be a time where I'm tuning everything else out and just having that time with Krishna.
Can I
'Cause
add in
that's,
one final?
please.
Because I really appreciate you sharing that. And since it is like the end of a year, and we're all into like wrapping things up and really, like, what's our recap? How'd we do this past year? I know it's
What's the
heavy on,
stats? What's the numbers? What'd you
right? Like,
achieve?
it's heavy on everybody's
What do you
mind.
got to show for yourself in 2022?
And I feel like as you and all of us assess our activities, and especially you as a leader, I feel like there should be, okay, here's what happened. Here's what happened, which might include all the ways that it went wrong or could be better or whatever. And then you should have another column just devoted to the services that we did for Krishna. What did we actually do this year? We can look at the services that we did. We succeeded so many days. We've chanted so many rounds of japa. Maybe there weren't 16 every day. Okay. But the japa that we did chant, maybe we've taken thousands of steps toward Krishna with each round. Maybe there were days that actually did go well. We have succeeded in so many ways. And I think that we should also acknowledge that there were times when we helped ourselves get closer to Krishna, when we endeavored to help others get closer to Krishna. Those sincere efforts have been acknowledged by our Supreme Person. So sometimes when we think that everything has not been going right, and our perspective needs to shift, and our goals need to be recalibrated and realigned. But some days we were in the pocket.
Mm.
There were a lot of days where we made it.
We thank you. We'll have a separate annual report that we send just to Krishna. And this is the call. Krishna, I put this annual report. I know you've already seen it, but what we got. I appreciate that a lot. We can pick more up, but that today's Wednesday. So we got 2 more days this week. We can pick up more tomorrow if you want to hear about all of my insecurities and feelings of failures in life. We can start there. And then I'll be encouraged by you. Thank you, Govinda. Thank you all so much. Thank you for all the beautiful chat. We do this live every day, and so we got a live Zoom room here that's chatting away and sharing realizations and encouragements. And we see you and we love you, and we're grateful for all you listening out there. If you want to be in touch with us, write to us, spiritmatters@bhakticenter.org. You can go to the website and you can get our Zoom info if you want to join us live. And we appreciate you. Thank you guys so much. See you next time. Bye-bye.